This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
It's the Noon Report from Family Life, bringing a Christian worldview to what's happening in New York, Pennsylvania, across the country, and around the world. Weather with Kevin Williams, plus special features and reports with the Family Life News team. Now, here's what's happening.
The manhunt is over with. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the broadcast.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We got him.
That's the governor of Utah, Spencer Cox, announcing today the arrest of a suspect for the shooting death of conservative influencer Charlie Kirk.
I'm grateful that at this moment we have an opportunity to bring closure to this very dark chapter in our nation's history.
The suspect, 22-year-old Tyler Robinson, taken into custody late last night after being turned into police by a family member. FBI Director Kash Patel at a press conference today in Orem, Utah.
This is what happens when you let good cops be cops. The FBI and our partners are proud to stand here today together to bring justice to the family of Charlie Kirk.
The alleged assassin accused of killing Kirk at a rally Wednesday at Utah Valley University. He was not a student there. Conservative talk show host Ben Shapiro says cancel culture may have killed Kirk, but his message of hope, faith, truth, and love will continue.
We will not stop telling the truth. We will never stop telling the truth. We will never stop debating and discussing. We will never stop standing up for what America is and for what she should be. And we will never let Charlie Kirk's voice die.
Pastor Greg Farrington says Charlie Kirk helped embolden the Christian faith of countless thousands of young people on college campuses all over this country.
Charlie was a modern day Billy Graham to a younger generation. He was a truth teller in a culture that doesn't paint things in black or white. And so people gravitated to that. Young people gravitated to that. I spoke to hundreds of 20-somethings last night as they gathered at our church, and they are mourning the loss of a voice of their generation.
Charlie Kirk's body was flown yesterday aboard Air Force Two from Utah to his home state of Arizona, where a funeral will happen next weekend. Vice President J.D. Vance, a personal friend of Kirk's, escorted his casket. Charlie Kirk was just 31 years old and leaves behind his wife, Erica, and their two young children. There is other news to get to today, including the weather. Apparently, too much good weather. Drought conditions persist now in western and central New York, as well as the Twin Tiers and western and central Pennsylvania. We could use some rain. The long-range forecast shows very little in the way of precipitation, and a major warm-up is on the way, too.
Dry, warm, sunny, high pressure, not moving. Not a drop of rain expected here through the weekend. Temperatures will be toasty too. The AC may need to be run as temperatures do get back up into the mid-80s. I think 84, 85, even 86 degrees, not out of the question.
Yeah, don't put away that AC just yet, says meteorologist Brett Thakra in Central PA. Our weatherman Ken McKinley has that weekend forecast coming up. In other news today, COVID-19 is no longer one of the top 10 causes of death in these United States. Mark Mayfield has our report.
According to data from the CDC's National Center for Health Statistics, the top 3 leading causes of death are now heart disease, cancer, and unintentional injury. Data found the death rate fell by 3.8% in 2024, which signals a decline to pre-pandemic levels. Researchers suggest that fewer COVID-19 deaths are likely driving the decline in the nation's overall death rate. I'm Mark Mayfield.
All right, thank you, Mark. President Trump will be visiting the tomb of the late Queen Elizabeth II when he visits the UK next week. The president and First Lady Melania Trump set to arrive in London on Tuesday. They will be the guests of King Charles at Windsor Castle. During that 3-day stay, the Trumps will also meet with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer. The commander-in-chief received a warm welcome last night at Yankee Stadium as he witnessed the Bronx Bombers take down the Detroit Tigers in New York. Mr. Trump was there to show solidarity with the city on the 24th anniversary of 9/11. Before the game, he met in the locker room with none other than Yankee slugger Aaron Judge.
You're going to win. You're going to go all the way. And you get in the playoff. I wish it was a little bit bigger, you know.
For the record, Aaron Judge is 6'7". He hit 2 homers last night to help the Yanks to a 9-3 win over the Tigers. And with those dingers, Judge is now tied with the late, great Joe DiMaggio, Joltin' Joe, for 4th place on the all-time home run list for New York Yankees. Still to come on the Noon Report for Friday, the proliferation of political violence, drought conditions worsen, and hate speech at school. Why districts are drawing the line.
This is meteorologist Ken McKinley. Look for plenty of sunshine through this afternoon with temperatures pretty well up in the 70s in all areas. As we move through the weekend, there'll be some clouds at times, but very little significant precipitation, and temperatures will remain mild for this time of the year. Full weekend forecast details are coming your way in about 10 minutes.
All right, Ken McKinley, we will check in with you then. The sunshine is nice, but as we mentioned earlier, we could use some rain. Not going to get a lot of it, though. Family Life's Mark Webster.
Yeah, how dry we are, especially in parts of New York and Pennsylvania. New numbers from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration show moderate drought persisting and expanding in our area. That includes parts of all of western New York from Chautauqua northeast to Wayne County. In PA, a large swath of moderate drought includes several northern and central counties, from Indiana County northeast to Potter and Tioga counties, with no relief in sight anytime soon. Mark Webster, Family Life News.
Okay, Mark, thank you. 2 people are dead after a helicopter crash in Carbon County, Pennsylvania. That chopper went down near the Penn's Peak Concert Hall around 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon. The victims include the pilot and an electrical contractor on board. The crash happened while they were doing some work on power lines in that area. Naples, New York high school teachers facing disciplinary action for a hate-filled social media post following the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Patrick Freevold teaches physics in that Ontario County district, or he taught physics. He's been suspended. Many want him fired. Meantime, the student body president at St. Bonaventure University in Olean, she's also facing discipline for her derogatory post in the aftermath of Kirk's death. St. Bonaventure's president says that post by Emma Gavazzi runs completely counter to the school's beliefs. Former Elmira College political analyst Dr. Steve Coleman has an altogether different view of Charlie Kirk.
He was a shining light in an age of political violence, mayhem, and insanity. We've lost a very important person. Charlie Kirk was a gift from God.
In Pennsylvania, inflammatory rhetoric about the Charlie Kirk assassination was posted by a teacher at the Spring Cove School District in Blair County, as well as by a school board member at the Homer Center District in Indiana County. A faculty member at the Lancaster School District also shared negative views on social media. Each of those districts say they are taking appropriate action now in response to that hate speech. Syracuse University political scientist Dr. Grant Rear says political violence has been on the rise for about a half a century in this country, and it behooves our elected leaders, he says, to tone down the rhetoric.
I think now we're in a situation where everything in this country that happens, whether it's COVID or whether it's a shooting like this, is going to be discussed and seen through those polarized lenses. And unfortunately, that's where we are right now politically as a country.
Dr. Rear explains how cancel culture has devolved into kill culture in our country right now.
We have this level of polarization. People get dug in, they get very angry, they get very agitated, and that emotion just builds on itself. And so there's been this phrase that we hear from Republicans, Trump derangement syndrome. I think that there's an element of truth to that, but it operates across the spectrum, and both sides get so worked up that then those who are capable of violence are more stimulated to act.
He tells Spectrum News the political violence we're seeing right now reminds him of the civil unrest this country went through during the race riots and Vietnam War protests of the 1960s. The struggle to find common ground on the 75-day late Pennsylvania state budget has as much to do with geography as it does fiscal philosophy. Democrats, who call the shots at the governor's office and state house, tend to hail from more urban areas like Philadelphia. Republicans, who rule the roost in the PA Senate, call more rural areas home in the central and western part of the state. Lisa Baker represents northeastern PA in the state Senate.
Some of these issues, to your point, are regional in nature. They're not Republican or Democrat. Look at the vote on SEPTA. For me, my constituents were more interested in 3- and 4-digit roads.
There's no question geography of the membership and leadership members has played a role.
Senate Minority Leader Jay Costa.
I think you have to recognize where the parties and what they're fighting for and why they're fighting for, and recognize the geography is part of those things.
And we've always had the wrestling match between rural versus urban.
That's House Rep Carrie Benninghoff. The latest state budget, by the way, in Pennsylvania was back in 2017. That was 9 months past the due date. This stalemate has schools, hospitals, and nursing homes wondering where their funding stream will come from if it is not resolved soon. So far, it doesn't look like they are making much progress. Hundreds of Pennsylvania school districts want more fiscal accountability for charter schools. Here's Family Life's Brian Query.
A letter featuring signatures from administrators at 215 schools was sent to state legislators Thursday, calling for a cyber charter funding formula that reflects the true cost of cyber education and increased transparency of how cyber charter schools use their tuition dollars. Pennsylvania's public schools pay for students in their area to attend one of the state's public cyber charter schools. Annual tuition costs vary throughout the state, ranging from $7,600 to nearly $29,000 per student. Governor Josh Shapiro included cyber charter reform in his proposed 25-26 budget plan released earlier this year, which would cap tuition at $8,000 per year per regular education student. Brian Query, Family Life News.
An 89-year-old woman was killed yesterday when a dump truck slammed into her home in Livingston County, New York. That truck was carrying 20 tons of asphalt when it hit the home in the town of Sparta.
She was 89 years old. She had the energy of a 30-year-old. Just found myself crying over it. She's someone who's going to be missed, and there's no words to describe the burning of the house. I can't put it into words.
Pastor David Zastrow with the Sparta Center Church. That's where that elderly woman attended. She lived in the home with her son. The investigation into that crash continues. 650 Buffalo State University students have been without hot water for a whole week, and that's tough stuff for a college kid. The water woes are due to repair work at 4 dormitories. Special shower trailers have been brought in, but in the words of one student, and we're quoting here, they're gross, end quote. No word on when the hot water will be back there at Buff State. And who thought this was a good idea? 2 students at Cornell University hunted and killed a bear and then skinned that bear in their dorm room. A university spokesman says the 2 had valid hunting permits. A police report was filed after a complaint was made. Sports is next. It's the 2-minute drill on Family Life.
Good afternoon. I'm Randy Snavely. Bob, the Green Bay Packers are the first team to reach 2-0 as they took down the Commanders 27-18 last night. Unfortunately for the Packers, wide receiver Jaden Reed broke his collarbone on the opening drive. He's going to be out for several weeks. All right, let's talk baseball. The Philadelphia Phillies really put a damper on the Mets, completing a 4-game sweep with a 6-4 win, and how they did it had to really hurt the Mets. They scored 4 runs in the first inning on 5 hits, but then Jesus Luzardo retired 22 straight batters, 10 of them by strikeout, and that allowed his guys to go to work to get back in the thing, and go to work they did. Otto Kemp hit a home run and drove in 3. Bryce Harper hit an RBI double, and Harrison Bader had the go-ahead RBI single. sending New York to their 6th straight defeat. Aaron Judge hit 2 home runs, and that ties him with Hall of Famer Joe DiMaggio for 4th place on the Yankees all-time list. New York went on to beat Detroit and avoid a sweep 9-3. Giancarlo Stanton also went deep following Judge's 2nd long ball. Well, they didn't wait until the end of the game this time, but the Orioles did score late and swept the Pirates 3-2. Dylan Beavers drove in the go-ahead run in the 7th inning. Other winners in the major leagues, the Pale Hose, the Blue Jays, and that one, Kevin Gossman, a 2-hit shutout. The Guardians, Mariners, Marlins, and Padres. And let's talk NASCAR for a moment. Tomorrow, 4 drivers will be eliminated in the Cup Series playoffs. Chase Briscoe and Denny Hamlin are already through to the round of 12, but the other drivers still have some work to do. That is a look at sports.
All right, Randy, thank you very much. Have yourself a wonderful weekend. Coming up on the Noon Report, assassination culture in America, the Capital Connection crew, and weather with Ken McKinley. Right after this.
Welcome to Breakpoint, a daily look at an ever-changing culture through the lens of unchanging truth. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet. Unsurprisingly, on September the 11th, 2001, I wept. I also wept, unexpectedly, on September the 11th, 2011. Perhaps it was delayed grief, but mostly it was delayed realization. Sitting that Sunday morning with my young daughters, who were only 6, 4, and 2 at the time, it struck me just how differently their world was from the one that I wanted for them. I had that same sense strike me this week, on September the 10th. The assassination of Charlie Kirk seems to mark a new era, a world that no one wants, but may very well be here anyway. Calling the murder a tragedy for all of us, UK comedian and commentator Konstantin Kisin wrote this, quote, "I hope I'm wrong, but tonight feels like some sort of invisible line has been crossed, that we didn't even know was there. To murder a young father simply for doing debates and mobilizing young people to vote for a party that represents half of America, that's something else. Charlie's death is a tragedy for his wife, his children, and his family. I don't pray often," he says, "but I'm praying for them tonight. But I fear his murder will be a tragedy for all of us in ways we will only understand as time unfolds. I hope I'm wrong. I fear I'm not." End quote. Well, Kisin is not wrong that lines have been crossed, though the Christian must not fear. We must, however, squarely face the sober realities of this cultural moment. Kirk's murder followed another this week in Charlotte of a young woman from Ukraine riding a public train. Irina Zarutska was stabbed by a man who should have been in prison, or at least institutionalized, and she was then left to die by people too engrossed in their screens to notice or too jaded to care. Together, these atrocities reveal realities about our culture and how it's shaped those within it that many of us will find unthinkable, but we'd better think about it anyway. Zarutska's killer is a terrible example of the mental and social brokenness that permeates modern life. The bystanders who did not come to her defense or to her aid are, like the social media commenters and media personalities who callously commented on Kirk's assassination, examples of a rabid and pervasive dehumanization that has infected the Western world. In a recent Breakpoint commentary released prior to the atrocities of this week, Abdu Murray argued that this, and I quote, "post-truth world that elevates feelings and preferences above facts and truth has collapsed the distinction between a person's ideas and their identity. And so the social erasure of cancel culture has calcified into something darker. That something darker," he went on to argue, "is assassination culture." He then continued, and I quote again, "unmoored from that objective standard for human value, we've made gods of ourselves and therefore justify eradicating any who dare to have any other gods before us. This is indeed a civilizational moment. But it's to this moment that we've been called as God's people. And as his people, we know that this moment is not some fatalistic inevitability, nor does it determine or somehow redefine the story of which we're a part. In a video that's now circulating on social media again, Charlie is asked why he went on campuses to talk with and try to persuade those who disagree with him. Charlie responded, quote, "Because when people stop talking, that's when violence happens." It was a prophetic moment, but Kirk also demonstrated that we need not accept its inevitability. He showed that the conversation can be had. He showed that it must be had. He showed that the truth can still win hearts and minds, and that lies can still be opposed, and that it can all be done with a big smile. As the banner on the Turning Point USA website proclaimed, Charlie Kirk has been received into the merciful hands of our loving Savior, who suffered and died for Charlie. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stone Street with Breakpoint.
Thank you, John. Outside we go. Ken McKinley, your turn.
Good afternoon. Plenty of sunshine across the region as we head through the afternoon. Temperatures warming into the 70s in all areas. Very pleasant to be outdoors. And for the most part, a pleasant weekend as well. We will see some clouds at times. A couple of fronts coming on through, but precipitation fairly sparse. We may see a shower or two in some spots later tomorrow night or on Sunday, mainly across central New York and eastern Pennsylvania. But even where it does rain, it's not going to rain very much. Certainly not enough to alleviate the drought conditions across the area. Temperatures remaining warm for the season as we head through the weekend. Well into the 70s, perhaps 80 tomorrow, and still pretty well into the 70s in all areas on Sunday.
Okay, thank you, Ken. It's Friday, folks. Congratulations. You've made it the 12th of September. And this is the Noon Report on Family Life. This is Capital Connection. Fridays during the Noon Report, we give you, the listener, direct connection to all that's happening in Albany and Harrisburg with the experts on the issues at the state capitals. They are, as always, Jason McGuire with New York Families and Michael Gear at the Pennsylvania Family Institute. Well, let's jump right in. Lots to discuss this week. Jason, I want to begin with you. New York's Attorney General is inserting herself big time in a landmark legal battle involving a New York doctor who prescribed abortion kill pills to a pregnant woman in Texas. We've discussed this issue before on this program, but now it's gone to the next level here. What is going to come of this case, which really tests the limits of that SHIELD Act or SHIELD law in New York?
Yeah, this is an interesting case to watch because I think that now that New York State Attorney General Letitia James has weighed in against what's happening with Texas and their Attorney General, it's creating a scenario that may force this all the way to the Supreme Court. And I don't know that that's going to bode well for New York. New York wants Texas to respect states' rights in a New York doctor mailing abortion drugs into the state of Texas. But New York would never allow another state to send, let's say, firearms into New York from a state that is more pro-Second Amendment. And so it's going to be a difficult case for the Attorney General to make, and the ramifications may backfire on her.
All right, well, we're talking about this issue, Michael. Every day in Pennsylvania, 100 babies are lost to the abortion holocaust, which is still happening despite the overturn of Roe v. Wade. You are going to be shining the light big time on this issue a week from Monday, September 22nd. It's the 5th annual Pennsylvania March for Life, one of the largest rallies there is in Harrisburg. What's the message you hope to send to state lawmakers and the governor?
Well, I just first have to say, hearing you say those words, 100 babies are lost to abortion every day in Pennsylvania, it just lands on me horrifically for people to just grasp that. And that's why we march, because of the death toll that we're seeing. One of the things that I love about this particular march this year is that our MC and keynote speaker is Ryan Baumberger. He's a young man who was conceived in rape, but his mom chose life and gave him up for adoption. And his life and legacy, and that really of the marchers that will be there, send the message that every human life has inestimable value. We're created in the image and likeness of God, and that we must protect all innocent human life from conception until natural death.
Amen. And again, there's information on your website if you want to take a bus trip to the Capitol. All that's online. We'll give that at the end. But Jason, let's talk about marijuana. I know we beat this drum a lot, but just read an article. We still got a ways to go in 2025, and already the state has raked in over $1 billion, with a B as in basketball B, dollars in marijuana sales. It's a huge cash cow. But sadly, visits to the ER from marijuana-related illnesses have doubled the past couple of years in New York. How big of a problem is cannabis use disorder, and how is it really starting to impact our healthcare industry in this state?
Yeah, it's an enormous problem that we're concerned about. We're now seeing it lived out. Unfortunately, the state only sees the dollars it will take in from investing in legal weed, but really the problems are there, and they sometimes seem blinded to the ramifications of the policy decisions that they make. When you see teen use increasing, that is a problem. The marijuana that is being used today today is far more dangerous than it was decades ago. The THC levels are just unbelievable. Yeah. And the state seems to be turning a blind eye because it is blinded by the dollars that it's drawing in.
Yeah. Profits over public safety seems to be the way they're operating in Albany. But, Michael, you've successfully fought off this expansion of recreational marijuana in your state for several years. The vote is always very close. Many who support this say it's not a question of if, but when pot is permissible in Pennsylvania. How has science strengthened your argument and your fight to keep this out of the Commonwealth?
Well, I think the scientific studies on marijuana are finally catching up with the detail on the impact of the high-potency products, as Jason talked about, that are now sold in pot shops in states that have legalized. And the impacts of that high potency are devastating. Addiction, psychosis in vulnerable folks, impaired memory or cognition, anxiety, and it's worse for teens. And the addiction that will come from this is, I think, intended by the marijuana industry.
Yeah. Jason, there have been several ICE raids of late in upstate New York. There was a big one in Cayuga County, the town of Cato, at a food processing plant. There was also a protest earlier this week in Rochester that could have become violent. These officers tasked with enforcing immigration law were spit upon, were sworn at. They had their tires on their vehicles slashed. How concerned are you that this could escalate into further violence?
I'm very concerned about the rise of lawlessness that we see in our state. And that's what's happening here. The state delegation showed up, and this was not a pre-planned protest. This was ICE showing up to make a lawful arrest. And when they showed up on scene, the locals that were involved with advocacy on this immigration issue sent out the message. And quickly, 100 or more people showed up to protest what was happening with ICE Border Patrol on the scene. As a result of that, the state delegation, the Democratic members of the state assembly, the state senate were there, just standing by as this happened. Meanwhile, the RPD, the Rochester Police Department, was ordered to stand down. And so you have a scene where Border Patrol was left with its tires slashed and a crowd of 100 people, I think, on the verge of violence. And you had the local police department who refused to respond because it was a Border Patrol issue. We really are seeing lawlessness in the land, and I'm just very concerned we are on the edge of what may be coming.
Yeah, and it's not just in the big cities now. It's in some of these smaller communities as well. So we'll see where that goes. Mike, I know you're pleased at the action taken by the Berwick School Board in Columbia County, Pennsylvania this week in two decisions. They've protected privacy rights at schools. Transgender students cannot use the restrooms of the opposite sex, whether it's shower facilities or the like. And those who adhere to this lifestyle must get written permission from their parents before they can be referred to as their preferred pronoun. What's your reaction to what the Berwick School Board did this week?
Well, I applaud what they did, and I would say simply that the adults are starting to act like adults in these decisions that are being made. I mean, if we look 8 or 9 years ago, there were students in Missouri that were walking out of school because they were not being protected. They didn't like that invasion of privacy, and we've seen that in Pennsylvania. And so now to have school districts like we see there in Berwick taking a stand to protect the privacy of students is something we certainly applaud.
All right. Jason, you recently finished serving a 53-day jail sentence for a $1,300 clerical error that happened several years ago when you were the chairman of the Livingston County Conservative Party. Most people looking at this on the outside would say, how unfair is this? My question to you, now that you're on the other side of this, is how has this entire ordeal changed you?
Well, I think on the positive side, if we look for the silver lining for a moment, my faith has become more real. It's always been a very important part of my life. You know, I surrendered to the Lordship of Christ decades ago. But, 38 years into my relationship with Him, my faith reached a new level. Just being challenged as I went through that experience, and I believe I was politically targeted for my beliefs. Yeah. And so now we're going to pivot and begin to look at justice issues in our state and how to hold law lawfare accountable in New York.
Yeah. And then, Michael, we'll end with you. The Friends of the Family Banquet is a big thing for the PA Family Institute, fast approaching Saturday, October 11th at Hershey Lodge. The guest speaker is a guy that some of us may recognize, none other than Florida's Governor Ron DeSantis. Tell us what it means to have a guy like that speak at your banquet, and the big question, can people still attend or are you sold out?
Well, first, I just want to say that we're inspired in Pennsylvania by Jason's leadership and by what he has gone through, and so I just want to express that as well. That same inspiration we have for Governor Ron DeSantis, that leadership can make a difference and can bring change, and he's done that in Florida. We're excited to have him, and yes, tickets and sponsorships are still available at our website at pafamily.org/banquet.
All right, and I imagine you better act fast because they are going to sell like hotcakes.
They are.
Ron DeSantis, Governor of Florida, speaking at Hershey Lodge next month. You mentioned the website again, Michael, but if folks have questions about any of the topics discussed today, where can they find you online?
pafamily.org.
And read all about Jason McGuire's 53 days incarceration. Has some poignant thoughts on his website today. Jay, where can folks find you?
NewYorkFamilies.org.
Capital Connection, the name of the program, comes your way Fridays during the Noon Report or online anytime at FamilyLife.org.
Good afternoon. Plenty of sunshine across the region as we head through the afternoon. Temperatures warming into the 70s in all areas. Very pleasant to be outdoors. And for the most part, a pleasant weekend as well. We will see some clouds at times. A couple of fronts coming on through, but precipitation fairly sparse. We may see a shower or two in some spots later tomorrow night or on Sunday, mainly across central New York and eastern Pennsylvania. But even where it does rain, it's not going to rain very much. Certainly not enough to alleviate the drought conditions across the area. Temperatures remaining warm for the season as we head through the weekend. Well into the 70s, perhaps 80 tomorrow, and still pretty well into the 70s in all areas on Sunday.
Thank you kindly, Kevin. Finally at noon for a Friday. Don't put that joystick down just yet. It's National Video Game Day. Bree Tennis tells us video games are a $522 billion industry.
There are over 190 million gamers in the U.S., and it all comes down to a game known as Tennis for Two, created in 1958. By 1975, Atari came out with a home version. They called it Pong, and we were hooked. We've come a long way since then. Better consoles, graphics, and more intricate games. Game Informer says the most popular game right now is Minecraft, but it's okay to play a little Pac-Man. I'm Bree Tennis.
All right, Bree, thank you. And just like that, our time is up. That's our world. The world we live in. Friday, September 12th. Have a wonderful weekend. I'm Bob Price. Family Life News.
You've been listening to the Noon Report. Heard weekdays on Family Life. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at FamilyLife.org.